We love IoT.
You got to look at these things and make determinations based on what our own individual risk tolerance is.
But we all want the convenience. Ocean's 11 through the fish tank.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Cyber Guys podcast. Today, we're talking about the Internet of Things. You know how everything is on the internet now. We have mobile devices, we have thermostats, refrigerators, washers and dryers, cars, you name it, and it most likely has internet access these days. So with all of the convenience that internet accessible devices bring, how vulnerable does it actually make us? Is it something that we should actually fear?
Home security cameras meant to keep you safe, but now reports that hackers are breaking into them, terrifying families.
Using a laptop, the hacker dialed the car's emergency communication system and transmitted a series of tones that flooded it with data.
Those high-tech gadgets could be used against you.
The thermostat turned all the way up to 90 degrees. She thought it was a glitch, setting it back to room temperature. The thermostat continued to go up, and a voice began speaking from a camera in the kitchen.
A video from inside your home broadcast over the internet, and you have no clue.
It's happening to families all across the country.
The horrifying sound coming from this Ring security camera.
From iPhones to websites to cars, Charlie Miller of Ladue makes it his business to hack the computers that drive modern life.
Hackers are outsmarting the smart home.
Are you frightened? Not nearly frightened enough.
Maybe. In today's episode, Mike and I sit down and talk a little bit about the Internet of Things and some lessons to be learned from some of the past hacks that we've seen. But before we get into it, we got a little housekeeping to do. If you like what we do here on the Cyber Guys podcast, make sure you like the video. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe and hit that ring bell little thing, whatever it is, to make sure that you're alerted every single time we upload a new video. We have weekly podcasts, we upload snippets from the podcast, and we are starting a new segment that we're currently calling 3-Minute Cyber, but that title may actually change, where we break down some very complex technology and into small little bites about 3 minutes long. Go ahead, take a look at the channel if you want to see those. Don't forget, again, subscribe, like, ring bell thing. I'll see you guys after the episode. Hey man, so let's talk the Internet of Things.
IoT.
I know it seems like kind of trite and most people are just kind of accepting of it now, but I mean, the amount of vulnerabilities that occur just simply by putting one small device online, it's crazy. And I think a lot of people just kind of accept that and move on, but I think it's something to that we should wade into.
You know, this is one of those things I talk about a lot. I talk about to my customers. I talk about to my students, you know, the idea that we keep advancing what's possible so rapidly without thinking about what it opens up, what it creates. You know, everybody's playing catch up on, so if I put a nanny cam in my kid's bedroom and a hacker hacks it, he can see my child and actually in some cases scare them. And remember that it was on the news a couple years ago. This hacker was saying, you know, I forgot what he said he was. He
but
was
they were
Santa
talking
Claus.
to the kids and they were scaring
talking to the kid, freaking the kid out. You know, and at first the parents are like, "What? You're hearing voices? What's wrong with my kid?" The fact that this is possible. Oh, your TV has a nick in it. Oh, your doorbell has a nick. Oh, everything is on the internet now. You know, your refrigerator can, hit Whole Foods and order more stuff. And now that stuff's getting delivered, your refrigerator can order your supplies, and then guess what? Someone just shows up with new milk and eggs. I mean, yeah, it sounds great, but what's it opening up?
Yeah, every single time a new device is added to the internet, it only presents a new vector of attack. And as consumers, something to consider, of course, on the consumer side of the house is how convenient these devices are. It's really convenient to have a nanny cam in my kid's room because then I can keep an eye on them when I'm downstairs or when I'm in another room. It's really nice that my washer machine and my dryer are both on the Wi-Fi so that I get alerts when my wash is done if I'm in a different room. That's all convenient.
until it gets exploited.
then,
and look at what happens. Just look at what happens.
I'm your best friend.
As 8-year-old Alyssa LeMay stood in her room, a terrifying voice spoke to her.
I'm Santa Claus. Don't you want to be my best friend?
Yeah, that's terrifying, right? I mean, we're both parents,
Could you imagine?
and we see that.
I have kids. That's scary.
The horrifying sound coming from this Ring security camera installed in the child's bedroom, which she shares with her 2 sisters. For 5 minutes, the voice taunting the young girl, playing strange music, even instructing her to destroy her room.
It's absolutely scary, and so we know, as being in the cybersecurity space, we know how to secure those things down to a degree where it's extremely unlikely that something like that can occur. However, 90% of the population out there are not cybersecurity experts, right? They're not going to be able to configure it. And a lot of these companies, while they do have to go through some regulation to put stuff out, especially like nanny cams, right? They got to go through the FTC for approval. Cybersecurity is not a huge focus of that.
No. It needs to be, but it's not.
It needs to be.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, you have tons of IoT devices out there that can be scanned. There's repositories of, there's databases of security cameras that have been, infiltrated, and there's just a list of IP addresses that you can just kind of click on and then just get a random snapshot of somebody's house. I mean, all that stuff is actually out there, and I'm not even talking about on the dark web. There's stuff out there on the regular web that you can just go to and find that stuff.
So everybody, if you're a cybersecurity professional, you already know this, but everybody else watching this, if it's connected to the internet, it's connected to hackers. Your doorbell, your Nest, your Alexa device, whatever. If it's on the internet, it's connected to hackers. Just know that.
And that's the thing too. From the consumer side of the house, something else to consider is your own privacy. That a lot of times people will give up their own privacy for certain conveniences, of course. However, check at what point does it become too much convenience for when is the cost not worth it? When is the juice not worth the squeeze? I mean, check this video out. I want to show you this video that I have.
Well, I had to see it for myself.
This is something from Walgreens. Walgreens has digital screens now. Absolutely nothing to be worried about. But take a look at this. This is a screen at Walgreens, a digital screen that covers the fridge. And it says, we believe consumers can experience the benefits of digital technology without compromising privacy. Cooler Screens never seeks to identify individuals and never gathers or uses any personal identifiable or linkable information, therefore or thereby fully preserving privacy. The consumer experience is our priority. You should not have to have that on a screen in a supermarket.
Think about that. Just think about the implications. That is something their lawyers said, hey, do this, but you better slap this on it. Just make sure we put this disclaimer because they're going to sue us if you don't. That's what we're talking about.
But look at this. There are not only sensors on these digital doors, but there's cameras as well. So they're recording things. You cannot tell me that they're not storing that information somewhere.
Yeah.
That by utilizing and opening that door and grabbing whatever kind of water or beverage I want, that's not somehow being tracked.
Yeah.
That's absolutely insane.
And now Amazon Go stores, the whole store is based on, a deprivation of privacy. The whole concept is built around it. It's there. Everybody's watching. It's not Big Brother. It's your local multi-million dollar, billion-dollar corporation.
Again, you're right. It's not Big Brother. It's not the government. These are companies that are putting products out there that are just sucking up tons of data, tons of information, and oftentimes are less secure than you would expect.
And the thing is, they may not spend a lot of money on storage, but it doesn't mean that someone else can't tap into the feed, collect the information, and they store it. The idea that the company may not maintain this information for their records beyond a certain time index doesn't mean it's not going somewhere where that information can be compromised, used, abused, and taken advantage of on some level in the future.
Exactly. So let's shift gears though now to like companies and organizations, right? Now, every single time they come up with a new product to put a nick into, their attack vectors are being widened as well. Now, one of these instances I think is just famously awesome. There was a fish tank that was used as an attack vector by hackers in a casino.
Think about that. That's crazy. Your fish tank.
So this goes back to some to some reports from a few years back. But essentially, what some hackers were able to do is they were able to hack into the wireless sensor for a fish tank that basically provided temperature information, cleanliness information for the tank back to some central repository, and they were able to use that as the vector of attack and get in deeper into the network of the casino.
I mean, think about that. That's the next plot of the new Ocean's 11 movie. They're going to reboot the franchise, and the way you get into this casino is through the fish tank. But who thinks of securing the fish tank? That's the problem with IoT.
And that is a scene that you would see in a movie that people would be like, oh, that's just a Hollywood thing. That's fake. No, that is real. No. That is absolutely real. It not only has it happen, but it has happened. So
if it's on the same network, it can and will be exploited by those who are looking for a soft target entry point into your environment. And this is a perfect case in point. Perfect case. Yeah, Ocean's 11 through the fish tank.
Yeah, so I mean, companies are putting all kinds of things on the internet. They're utilizing all kinds of new products to streamline their operational environment, and all they're doing is exposing themselves more and more to attacks. Like I said, we're seeing that with the casino that got hacked via the fish tank sensor, but we're also seeing that in medical devices as well. So this is actually something that's really interesting. Back in 2015, the FDA actually confirmed that their cardiac devices at St. Jude's Hospital could actually get hacked. So devices, meaning like pacemakers, defibrillators, all those things that are used to monitor patients' heart rates, those could be vectors of attack.
Perfect crime. Talk about movies. This would be the next Knives Out plot. The next Knives Out series, we're going to kill the doctor before he says clear. We're going to hack into the defibrillator. And right when he's getting ready to defibrillate the patient and everybody says clear, before it happens, we'll shock it and he'll kill him.
Right.
I mean, it's far-fetched. I'm telling you, if you can hack into any device, you can misuse its function.
Absolutely. And just to be clear, this was a report that was done after the security patches were developed and implemented for these devices. This was something that the FDA came out and reported on and provided a report on. But the expectation that these things are patched and secure from the moment they're developed and pushed out to the operational environment or to the production environment is a misnomer. People mistakenly believe that these things are very secure, and oftentimes what we see is something like a data breach or an actual successful hack or some kind of attack before these things can be fully secure.
But that's the real risk of IoT. The real risk of IoT is the idea that no one even thinks about this device as being an attack vector, pivot point, or target of some cyber criminal or someone else with malicious intent. It just doesn't enter the mind because we're not used to thinking about those devices as being anything other than what they are. But the minute you put a network interface on it, the minute you have it connect to Wi-Fi, the minute you have any sort of program logic capability inside, even if it's a very, very lightweight OS that just does specialized things, the minute you do that, you are creating the opportunity for something to go very wrong.
We keep putting extremely dangerous devices on the internet. Absolutely, we really do. So back in 2015, there was a hack of a Jeep Cherokee at Black Hat USA. I don't know if you remember this when it came out. It's a pretty big story. Yeah. But yeah, what they basically were able to do is they were able to hack Jeep Cherokee while it was driving down the road and crash the vehicle.
What started as an ordinary highway drive
I can't see anything.
quickly turned terrifying for Andy Greenberg.
Okay, hold on tight. Hold on.
As hackers remotely took control of his 2014 Jeep Cherokee, sending him into a ditch. Greenberg, a reporter for Wired magazine, did this on purpose, working with cybersecurity experts, hackers, to show how some connected cars can be vulnerable.
Look at that. And
That's
think
a
like,
problem.
you have all these cars now. Even they may not be full Tesla autopilot. They may not go that far. But how many cars now have automatic braking? Collision detection. They park for you. There's enough control over the vehicle that is done under the guise of safety features that if it's actually abused or executed at the wrong time, if it can be accessed remotely and triggered, who knows what that could do to you?
The hackers in the Wired article accessed the Jeep through its infotainment system to change the radio and the AC, and in a much more dangerous move, to kill the engine.
And consider, and even consider for individuals who are maybe targets for more scrupulous hackers out there. They could be targeted based on their vehicle and easily have their devices hacked in the vehicle, the GPS navigation changed to have them led to a less safe environment, something that they could be either kidnapped or killed. I mean, these are real concerns that automakers have to face now,
But
since
we
they're
all-
putting these devices in these vehicles.
But we all want the convenience. This is possible now. My car can connect to my phone. My phone can connect to my house. My house can connect to my job. We want it. We want all these connections without thinking about the risk. And our job as risk management experts, as cybersecurity professionals, is to say, hey, wait a minute, slow down, pump the brakes. If you're connecting to the internet, you're connecting to hackers. You are
I think that's kind of that's one of the hardest things to do as well, because as we've mentioned before, time and time again, it's like we're beating a dead horse already. But a lot of times we're kind of seen as like these all we do is spread doom and gloom, and I'm sure that's what this episode comes off to to the layman. Honestly, everything you have is hackable, and you have to assume it's already been hacked. But
Right.
this is truly what we have to face, not only as consumers, but as organizations as a whole. We got to look at these things and make determinations based on what our own individual risk tolerance is. For a lot of people, they're okay with being vulnerable to a certain extent, if there's a good trade-off. I certainly know people in my life that would not care that Walgreens is tracking what they buy, even though that's what they're doing. Most companies are doing that. There's other people like myself who really, really are bothered by that fact. So it's all based on people's individual risk tolerance, just on but there is a misconception out there that devices that go on the internet are safe from the get-go, and that's something that I think needs to have a little bit more focus for sure.
That's simply not true. And this is what I always want people to come away with. It's when I talk to executives, when I talk to senior leaders, or even just regular users, I just said, look, we accept risk in life every day. You accept risk when you walk out your door. You accept risk when you're walking outside in the rain. Now, there's one thing to walk outside in the rain. There's something else to hold a metal stick above your head and walk to the top of a hill during a lightning storm. I mean, there are degrees of risk that people are willing to accept. But the problem is, and this is the real problem, is they accept risks that they have no idea that they're accepting. If you want to accept the risk, fine. You want to go bungee jump? But you know what you're doing when you jump off that bridge with a rubber hook. The idea that you may die is something that you're accepting. You jump out of a plane, you skydive. You're accepting that risk. You know what you're doing. But if you take a person who would never skydive and throw them out of a plane, that's a problem. And that's what we're talking about here. We're putting all these devices in everyone's homes, and we're saying, hey, look at this great feature, and not mentioning all the downside, all the risks, all the ways that this can be exploited to rob them of their privacy, to rob them of their safety, and even to rob them of their money, maybe even their lives.
And I think that's actually something that to consider. We should focus on a little bit more for people who are wondering, okay, so who cares if they can see what my thermostat says, or who cares if they can see that my my washer machine is done. That's not the point. That's not the whole point of the actual attack. What a hacker is likely to do is some form of ransomware attack where they will lock you out of that device, or they will shut down the device to the point where you can't use it, and will send you some kind of ransom letter that states you have to pay them a certain amount of money, click on a link, and send them money to this anonymous source in order to get your access back to these devices.
And there's another risk that, frankly, I'm even more concerned about than that. And that is using these IoT devices as a pivot point. If they're all sharing the same backplane, the same network, the same subnet as all your sensitive information, your actual computers and the things where you do have information you do care about. You may not care about that smart washing machine, but if it's on the exact same subnet and the exact same backplane as your personal computer and everything else, where you do your taxes or whatever, then you have another problem. Which is why I would just say to this: if you are a cybersecurity professional out here and you have IoT devices in your house and you don't want to let go of them, at least have the decency to segment your environment and create a firewall where you isolate your IoT devices from your more sensitive information. But for those out in the general public, just bear in mind, if it's on the same network, it's on the same network. If you can get to one, you can very often get to everything.
Yeah, and I think for the general population, it's difficult for them. We're not talking about VLANs and network segmentation and all that kind of stuff with them. What I would say, though, is to ensure that the operating system of whatever the device is up to date, and that the security patches, the latest security patches from whatever vendor you have, are installed as a baseline. Do your homework on the devices that you have and understand what the vectors of attack could be. It's very, very, very simple to just say, oh, well, it's behind my Wi-Fi password, or it's behind, a firewall, so I think I'm good to go. It's too easy to slip into that kind of complacency. If you do care about your privacy, if you do care about your security, if you don't want to be the victim of a ransomware attack or have your data stolen, then at the bare minimum, understand the devices that you're putting into your own private spaces, 100%. And if you determine that your risk tolerance is not surpassed, then by all means proceed, but do so with a full understanding of what you're getting into. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of consumers are victim of is they walk into these things, or they walk into homes that are fully networked, that have tons of IoT devices throughout, and have absolutely no clue what they're being exposed to.
That's really simple awareness. It's all about awareness. We love IoT, absolutely, but we know what it can do. We know what it can be. We know the other side, the dark side of the use and abuse of these devices.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Cyber Guys podcast. If you enjoy what we do here on the podcast, make sure you hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell to be notified of any time that we post something. We got a lot of stuff coming up. As always, my name's Andrew Valencia, and on behalf of Michael Hill, stay safe, be secure, be sure. We'll see you next time.